Welcome. Today I am dropping release 10 of Ikigai. I thought it would be a really good opportunity to kind of go through and show the state of Ikigai. We're still in a tech demo kind of state. There are a lot of missing features. Nobody should be using this. It is in heavy development. But that said, I'll launch Ikigai. One of the core tenet features of Ikigai is that it has permanent memory. So if I say, what is 1 plus 1? It will give me an answer. And then after it gives me an answer, if I exit and then I return, there's a couple of things that you can see here. A, that we resumed that conversation right where we left off. But the other is that every event actually plays into the database. Now, the output is a little bit verbose and kind of a debuggy in nature right now because it is in heavy development. But this gives you a little bit of insight to what's actually going on under the hood. There is a database, and the database takes in every single event that happens, whether it's me entering something at the keyboard or a model sending us a message. All of those events go into the database, and when I exit Ikigai and then I relaunch Ikigai, what it does is it replays, it basically just scrolls back to the previous clear and then replays the event forward into the memory structures. So we have this permanent history that's in the database, and the history beyond that clear is in the database. It's just that we only replayed into memory what was forward from that clear. Now, the purpose for this is a little bit further down the road. There will be tooling that will offer Ikigai so it can go and examine its own history, and that becomes something that's available for it to explore. Okay, that said, that all works. The next feature that I want to show is subagents. We currently have one running in the background. To kill a subagent, I can just do that. And that lets me start this little example fresh. So if I list the agents again, what you see here is it's saying, hey, there's one running agent. It is the root agent. It in fact matches this value that is in the separator there. So what it's saying is, hey, you are currently this agent. And if I let me put a little bit of conversation in. So I'm going to put a little conversation here into the context just so that we can see as we switch things what's going on. So I am currently that agent. I am going to type fork. When I do hit enter here, what's going to happen is kind of subtle. What's going to happen is you're going to see that the agent ID is going to change. So now we are a new agent, and it has a parent which is available on control up. You can see that the fork command is in the history, and we get this message that says that we're forked, we're the child, and our ID is this. And we have carried over the model that our parent was using. Just for the heck of it, let's switch to, I'll go into that in just a second, but I can change and I can go back up to the parent, and you can see now that this is the parent ID. If I go back down, you can see that I am in the child ID. In the child, I am going to ask a question. Is 37 plus 3. So I'm doing this just to put a little more context in here. So we have this 37 plus 3 in the child's context, but if I go back up to the parent, that context doesn't exist. So there's this completely separated concept of, once they fork, they share the memory when they fork, and then they move on. So if I go back down and if I do a clear down here, you can see that the child has no context anymore, but the parent still has its context. They are completely independent in that way. Now, there is also interprocess communication. So this is the parent ID. I can do mail send to that ID, and I don't know, I'm just going to say the result is 97, right? So for whatever reason, the child sent a message to the parent that says the result is 97. If I do a mail check, and it will see that it has one message on the queue, and the message is so short we can actually see the entire message just by looking at the list, but we can do a mail read and we are reading message number 1. We got the result is 97. We can do a mail delete, and we want to delete number 1. That message is deleted. So now if we do another mail list, mail check. Sorry, sometimes I change these names and then I forget them. You can see that the message is gone. So this is the underpinnings of the interprocess messaging that will exist. The agents themselves are not able to trigger forks, kills, mail sends and reads and things like that yet. That is, in fact, the very, very next thing that I'll be doing this week, which is adding the tooling abilities for the agents to be able to actually trigger those internal functions. Okay, so what have I done? I've done memory, subagents, mail. The next thing I want to show is tools. So, oops, fingers are in the wrong place. If I type tool, I get a list of tools. And tools in Ikigai are quite a bit different than how they're implemented. They work the same, but they're quite a bit different in how the implementation is handled in, for example, something like Cloud Code. These are actually external executables that are just dropped into the right directories, and then they become available tools. And the reason for this design is a couple-fold. It means that when somebody writes a skill, if they want to incorporate a tool with that skill, they get pure native performance. The skill doesn't even have to shell out to Bash to do the things. They can just build a native tool. The tools themselves are really simple. You can make one out of a Bash script. It has to respond to -- schema and return the JSON schema that is provided to the LLM to explain how to use it. And other than that, it has to read off of standard in the schema when it's being asked to run, and it has to output to standard out the schema that it is expected to respond with. And so you can actually write a Bash script that is a tool, you make it executable, you drop it in the right directory, and away you go. And it might not be a huge, it might not be an enormous thing, but everything about Ikigai is managing context. And it does take a little bit more context to run arbitrary Bash commands versus actually run an internal tool command. It's negligible, but at the same time, there's another advantage. Say that you want to wrap something like the GitHub tool. The GitHub tool can do everything under the sun. If you just let it use it through Bash, it can do anything that the GitHub tool can do. But if you wrap it in a small script that is a conformant tool script, you can limit what it actually says it can do and what commands it can take, right? So there are a number of features that are wrapped around that. Okay. Another feature that got implemented just recently is tool sets. Right now, there is no tool filter, but let's say that I wanted a particular agent to be a read-only agent. And what I would do then is I would give it a tool set that is file read, glob, grep, and probably web search. And now I have filtered down the available tools it can use. So if I ask the LLM, what tools are you just offered? So in every turn, every time you go out and make a conversation to the LLM, it's presenting the tools to it. What toolset does is it filters that list from the available tools. Now, I'll probably wrap a nicer user experience around this in the future, but you can see this is just another aspect of managing. Everything about Ikigai is completely having complete management over all aspects of it, including what tools each agent has access to. And again, of course, this is per agent. So if I go down, in fact, we still have it here. So if I were to ask this what its tool set is, it should be empty because when we forked this, the parent did not have a tool filter. And so they can have completely, and really that's the way that you would want to use it, is you would have subagents that you would be using for research that you don't want to have write access to the system. And in fact, with the introduction of the idea of prompt injection, that is really the way that you actually do want to do your research, is in agents that don't have any write or executable access on the system. Way down the road, Ikigai probably will definitely support running all of its tooling inside of sandboxes. That isn't something that it does right now. But it's that basic onion layer of security, right? So the more different tools I can you put together here to allow for security in the future, the better. Okay, so that's tools. The next thing I want to show is pins. Ikigai has this concept of you, the user, are in control of the system prompt for Ikigai. And so what you see here is that the system prompt for Ikigai this version of this instance of Ikigai right now, and these are per agent, is this set of files. So if I were to go and say, show me this is the dumb way to do it. I'm going to copy that and ask it to show us the contents of that. Couple of things that I want to draw out attention to is, so you can see that it has a really, really simplistic system prompt right now. Slowly, as I've been adding features and figuring out that I need to teach it things, I've just been dropping things in there very quickly. Eventually, that'll become a polished thing. But what I want to draw attention to is this URI right here. Ikigai has this concept of an internal file system that is shared across all of the agents. In truth, what's really going on with it is it's mapping Ikigai. So what it's doing is it's mapping Ikigai state directory to that URI. So if you type ik something foo.md, under the hood, all that's really going on is this is being mapped to foo.md. But what that allows us is it could be a network system mount, it could be a distributed file system mount, it could be anything. And we give it the instructions so that the models know that they can treat it just like a bash path. So they can intertwine these, they can intermix them. So it can actually execute a bash command against something that has the internal file system name. And under the hood, before we pass it off to the tools, what we do is we do the translation. So the underlying files, the underlying tools just see the actual system pass. Why do this? Well, it's just a heck of a lot easier for the users. Every system, depending on whether you have XDG and environment variables set or whatever, they may end up putting the actual state directory in different places. That really is a configuration concern. And what this allows the user to do then is just to reference the internal file system as its own thing, and it's always accurate across all of the different agents. Now, I want to take a quick look at this again. You can see that I also just have things that are in this directory that are pinned as part of the system prompt. So both things work. This pin is paired with, right now we have the JJ skill. I have that in there because that's what I use for version control. If I unpin that, then we'll get two completely different answers here, and I'll just show it. So right now it doesn't have the JJ skill in memory, right, or as part of its system prompt. So it's going to give us a fairly generic answer about JJ. It's searching the web saying, hey, what the heck is JJ? And there's like a small chance that it might figure out that we're talking about the version control system. It doesn't really seem like it's going to figure that out. Oh, actually it did. It found the skill file poking around on the file system. So it's doing a bunch of exploring. The difference is, It's really doing a bunch of exploring. I haven't really experimented with this, but I think that I can, well, okay, so here we go. So we're finally getting an answer. So it did all of that. It did find the stuff about the skill, but you can see it did a big, long search on the internet because it didn't really know what we were talking about. But if I clear again, and if we look at the pins, you'll notice that the JJ skill is missing. If I pin that skill back in there, oh, that would help. Okay, so we do have it in, so I can pin IK skills JJ. There we go. So it now has the skill pinned again. Actually, we'll just show it. So you can see that the skill is pinned again. And if I now say, let me just do this. What do you know about JJ? We should get a completely different behavior, right? Because it now knows it has JJ in its system prompt, and it didn't even go search for anything, right? So the point being is that much like the tool sets and the tool set filter, this allows you to design and construct your system prompt. In truth, I had originally planned a skill set system that effectively was just another set of pins. They, maybe where you could load them by name, and maybe I will still do that. That'll be a user experience feature that I'll put on top of this. But the pin feature is actually all you need to get that explicit control over what's in context. And it is such a simple tool. It basically just builds up this layered system prompt. We actually treat it as the system prompt. It can be cached by the various providers then much easier. It actually works out really nice. Okay, so what have I done? I've done, let's do it this way. Let's look at the help. So we've talked about, I haven't shown the mark and rewind. Ikigai has an explicit mark where you say in the so let's do a quick what. So if I say something here, like what is 3 plus 3, and we have a turn, I can say mark. And what I've done is that is literally just a mark in the event log. And then if I say, what is 92 plus 9? I can do another turn, and then I can say rewind. And so right now you can see that we have, after the mark, we have what is 92 plus 9 with an answer. If I do a rewind, we are back to we're scrolled back to the mark with just the content before it still existing. It's like a clear back to a certain point. And in fact, that's probably how I'm going to reframe it in the future, is I'm going to lose the rewind command, and it's really just going to be clear to a mark, clear to a named mark. Okay, what else do we got? I don't know. I think that I showed it, but if not, we have the. I don't think I did go into depth in it. So let's do this. Let's say, can you read docs? Not. So we support a fairly large number of models right now. The providers that we support are Google, Gemini, OpenAI, and Anthropic. With the Anthropic stuff, I only have the current generation of thinking models. I just don't think that the older ones are. I think actually everything from 4.0 would work. But I don't really see any reason to put the older ones in there. I haven't messed with it. OpenAI, there are two different APIs. There's the API supported by 5 and newer, and then there is the older API, and that's largely the reason that the GPT-4 stuff is still in here. I think that the GPT-4 is the first generation of reasoning that doesn't have the new API. The reason that I keep that right now is because when I go to do like Ollama and stuff, they some of the APIs may actually be that older chat API. So that is the reason for that. But anyway, we get the much larger list, including 5.2 and Codex. On the Gemini side, up until just recently, and up until just this release, I only had the 2.5 stuff in there, but I've added in the 3 previews, the Gemini 3 previews. The API changed in these, and maybe I will show that. That's actually a little bit interesting. So we're currently, I'm going to just clear, and I'm going to do model, and we'll do Claude Sonnet 4-5, and we'll do medium thinking. And so that's how you're able to express the choice of model and thinking at the same time. Internally, Ikigai has a concept of no thinking budget, none, low, medium, high. And what those values translate to is none is the 0 or the lowest possible value, and then it increments in thirds. So, low is 1/3 of the maximum budget, medium is 2/3 of the maximum budget, and high is 3/3 of the maximum budget, or mapped to the closest corresponding thing of the underlying provider. Some underlying providers, like Anthropic, they support token counts. So you have, I think it's 64K. I think it's 64K tokens for Anthropic, and these are also then rounded down to the nearest power of 2. So what you specify it is one of those generic terms. It shows you the generic term you use, but it also gives you the exact value that was set on when the model is being used. And I can do a model for GPT 5.2, and we'll do high. And with the GPT models, they map literally to none, low effort, high effort, or low effort, medium effort, high effort. And the output here is a little bit off. I need to fix this. It should both be showing our representation number for it, and then in parentheses theirs. This was before I decided to clarify it that way. And then in the Google ones, it's model Gemini 3 flash preview, and we'll do none. And this actually doesn't map through right, because the lowest possible, it only has 2 settings. So this is still open work that I need to do. There's only 2 possible settings for the Gemini 3 preview models. It's either low or high. And so what we should see here in parentheses is low or high. Everything is working correctly under the hood. It's just that very recently I decided to clarify what was being displayed out. Okay, let's clear. Let's take a look at the help real quick. This needs to be removed. The pin replaces. Very, very early on, I had just a slash command where you could change the system prompt, but it isn't relevant anymore. You pin or unpin to make the prompt. The refresh command is to reload the tooling. So let's say that you're working on adding an external tool or something, and you have Ikigai running. You can say, hey, go back and check the tool directories and re-enumerate them. So we did agents and clear and fork and kill, and we talked about the mail. We talked about mark and model and pin. We just did refresh, rewind, system prompt will go away. Tools lists the tools, tool sets creates the filter, and unpin. That is pretty much the full set. And then maybe the one last thing that I want to show is, let's say I do, what is the weather like? Just this round, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Let me, so you can see it, we just seg vaulted, which shouldn't have happened. Now I got to fix the terminal. I want to see if that was a model issue. So if I go back to model, Claude, Sonnet 4.5 none. Do a clear. What is the? Yeah, there we go. So I think that was a model issue. I was just working on the providers just recently, and we were changing how the streaming content is parsed. And it's very likely that in the process, I only fixed OpenAI. I only had to deal with an issue in OpenAI and Anthropic and not Google. And Google got less testing, and it's quite likely that the changes that we just made in that streaming parsing is where the issue is coming in for the interrupted prompt right there. But I want to explain the interrupted prompt. You can see that kind of behavior when you're working in Cloud Code or whatever. You type a command and you're like, oh, I don't want that. You hit escape. Up until just recently, I did not have that behavior in Ikigai. And so now when you interrupt, you actually see the interrupted event gets pushed into the database. And in fact, just to show how thorough and complete, oh, it doesn't render though, another bug. So this was just a recent addition. There is actually an interrupted event, and the messages that were interrupted, in fact, you don't see the message there. That also is a bug. You should still see the interrupt. You should still see at least at this stage, you should still see the interrupted message and the item that was interrupted, which will probably color slightly different. Okay, so again, this is in an early tech demo phase, so I get to show off the bugs too. This is Ikigai as it is today. The next thing that I will be working on is going to be the internal tool calls. This gives the agents the ability to use any of these commands. This is where it gets to be at least equivalent with what Cloud Code 1.0 was, more or less, right? I mean, it's definitely getting close. It's still got a lot of major features that we're working on. If you're interested in those, you can go look on the GitHub and take a look at the roadmap. But thank you. That was a little tour of Ikigai, and I will see you next time.